Hello and welcome to the video. This is a very quick look at a new product from RunCam. Well, it's not new at all really, it's been around for quite a while, and for those of you that have watched the channel for ages, and for those of you that have watched the channel for quite a while, you'll know there's quite a bit of history behind the RunCam Split. And it goes all the way back to a product called RunCam 3, which was a box style camera exactly the same size as a GoPro Session, or close enough that allegedly it made no difference to GoPro, and legal proceedings ensued, and that fabulous little camera was discontinued. It looks like RunCam then took all that electronics and technology and know-how and stuck it into one of the first ever FPV cameras that not only provided a nice beautiful FPV image to your FPV equipment to come back to your goggles, but also recorded in 1080p onto an SD card locally on the machine. Now, I said at the time the RunCam Split 1 was one of those things that worked well, but to me felt like it was a little bit rushed. The way that the Wi-Fi board connected felt a little bit dodgy, and it wouldn't really work very well once you had it installed inside a model. Then that was replaced by the RunCam Split 2 that I looked at quite a while ago now, and that RunCam Split 2 have had a couple of those and I've put them in lots of different places. And the most recent places you'll have seen the RunCam Split is I installed the Split Mini into the Armatan Gecko, and there'll be more videos on that build coming soon. And this is the latest version, so I wanted to get this one in because I'm potentially going to pop this into the nose of the ZOHD Dart XL action camera in the nose dart model. I'd rather have that weight as milliamp hours to extend the flying time, so I'm very tempted to put this in the nose. So this video is really about what has changed, what's new on the RunCam 2S, and what is slightly different. So first of all, let me go through some of the specs. So field of view in 4:3 mode, which is what you're going to be looking at for the FPV feed, is 140 degrees, and in 16:9 it is 170 degrees, and you can decide which one of those you want. In my opinion, 170 degrees in 16:9 is a fantastically wide field of view and is not as useful as smaller fields of view for FPV. But the HD recording that can either be done in 1080p 60 frames a second, 1080p 50 frames per second, 1080p 30 frames a second, or 720p 60 frames per second is also at that 170 degrees, and I'll show you some footage in a minute of what that looks like. There is a little bit of distortion at the edge, but you'd expect that with such a wide field of view. Lens thread size on the camera is M12 by 0.5 millimeters. The video file format is MOV. I'll give you an idea of how big the file sizes are in a moment. Image resolution 2 megapixels. It'll support both NTSC out, that's 720 by 480, and PAL as well, and that's all switchable inside the camera. Interface is micro USB on the side. There's also a UART for controlling it if you want to get into things like clean flight and Betaflight control, although to be honest, I actually am not using that on any of this latest generation, and I'll show you why in a minute. Maximum card supported size is 64 gigabytes. You're going to need a class 10. I've got a 16 gig for testing in here, but I'd recommend that you go minimum of 32. It's amazing how quickly the space gets used up. There is the Wi-Fi module that plugs into the side. The Wi-Fi module is much neater now. You can buy this thing with and without the Wi-Fi module. Without the Wi-Fi module, it's slightly cheaper. Again, the Wi-Fi module isn't something that I've really played with a lot, because as it comes out the box, the default settings have been well thought through and they just kind of work really nicely. Dimensions of the PCB itself, 38 by 38 millimeters, standard mounting, but there are anti-vibration grommets in the kit now, so that you can use those when you're putting everything together. The camera itself is a 19 by 19 millimeter size, same size as a Micro Swift, and the power input can be 5 to 15 volts. Now that's a little bit less than on the RunCam Split Mini that I put into the Gecko, so you're going to have to think about that. It's probably only going to be a maximum of 4S directly. The power consumption on this compared to the Mini seems a little bit lower. So this is 650 milliamps at 5 volts or 270 milliamps at 12 volts. So you could probably get away with running it from a regulated 9-volt power supply from your flight controller. And the net weight of the whole thing is about 19 grams, which is an awful lot less on a small model than adding a separate action camera. So before I take it outside and show you some footage, let me just show you the neat feature that means that I'm not having to play with any of the settings. I'm not even playing with the Wi-Fi stuff to set this up. Now I'm just powering this from a 5-volt battery eliminator circuit running off battery. 5 volts, again, this thing is allegedly pulling about 650 milliamps. This is a 2 or 3 amp BEC and it isn't even breaking a sweat. So I've just rigged all this together, but as I plug it in, you'll notice that initially powers up, and that flashing blue light is the warning to say I haven't got an SD card in it. So let's just pop that 16 gig SD card in that I'm using for testing and then plug it back in. And this time, as soon as it plugged in, it checks and makes sure everything's all tickety-boo, and then immediately starts recording. There's a little confirmation beep, and that flashing blue light means that it's recording 1080p 60 frames a second. I love that feature. I love the fact that as soon as you plug the battery in, you're not having to try and mess around and try and find where the little button is, or try and remember which of the two buttons is the power and Wi-Fi and which one is the start stop shutter. It just does it all itself. The amazing thing is when you unplug the battery, it does an orderly shutdown, closes the video file, so you don't have to remember to press a button before you unplug the battery, which is brilliant. That's exactly the way that I want it to work. It's exactly the way it's working on the Armatan Gecko build, and it's exactly the way this one works as well. So thumbs up to RunCam, well done. You have actually made it so that you can just stick this into your model, so long as you can provide the 5 volts in with a decent current, connect the video out to your FPV system. As long as you've got an SD card with space in this thing, you're going to get nice footage. Speaking of nice footage, let me show you how this thing actually copes, and we'll take a little walk down the usual lane. It's slightly overcast but bright morning here. Winter is definitely on its way here in the UK, so all the leaves have disappeared and we've got the sun low in the sky in the left hand side. But hopefully you can see already the quality of the video. It's exactly what you'd expect from a RunCam Split 2. As I move it around, you can see there's great contrast, good color saturation. The color fidelity is pretty good as well. And the way it's handling the dynamic range, that wide dynamic range that RunCam stuff has, is working brilliantly. So I've still got color in the sky, and I still can see into the shadows in the edges of the plants as well. Now, if I just continue to walk up and go to the top, what I'm going to do is actually shut up for a minute, and I'll just bring the mic up. Because on the board itself there is both a buzzer, which is used to give you audible tones to let you know that something is working, it's starting and stopping recording, but there's also a little microphone on here as well. Now the microphone doesn't have a mic out if you wanted to send that to your FPV kit, but that audio is on the recording. So let me just shut up for a second and you can listen to the sound directly from the camera. And hopefully that gives you an idea of how good the sound recording is. That little microphone works brilliantly well. If I was going to have it in the open air, I might just stick a little bit of foam over the top just to stop air noise, making it sound like somebody's heavy breathing. But as it stands, the sound quality is great. You can hear the birds tweaking in the background, you can hear the traffic noise in the distance. So the couple of things that have changed on this 2S, and you might have noticed as we've been looking at the different pictures. The first is the camera is 19mm by 19mm, same size as the Micro Swift. There's a new ribbon cable retaining system on this as well. They've put a little steel retaining plate on the PDB that's keeping everything nice and secure. I do like that idea. As you're moving the cable around, it could put strain on it, and having that strain relief bracket is a fab idea. The anti-vibration mounts is now in the package. I think that's a nice idea. I haven't had problems personally with vibration into the PDB itself. It's probably better adding anti-vibration into the camera mount rather than anywhere else, but it's a nice touch. The camera adapter comes in the box as we've seen, so if you have a more traditional 28 by 28mm size enclosure for the camera, you can pop that around the outside and that'll fit. And RunCam is saying there's improvements in the image quality. This looks very, very similar to the original RunCam 2. I'm not seeing anything that's really jumping out at me. It just looks like a really nice image. Couple of things to think about. If this board is too big for you, for 38 by 38 millimeters, there is also that RunCam Split Mini that we put in the Gecko. That performs in exactly the same way, has auto start, auto stop. It's a little bit more compact, which does mean you can get it on smaller builds. The current needed, this one's not too bad, 650 milliamps at 5 volts, 270 milliamps at 12 volts. If you've got a 9 volt supply, most 9 volts regulated power supplies on flight controllers will run this without a problem. Personally, I would always say, if you can, I would always try and run it from a regulated power supply. It just avoids the possibility of any noisiness in the power system causing problems with the recording or the way the FPV kit's working. It would have been nice if the voltage on this was a little bit wider, 5 to 15 volts. I'd like a little bit more, because that means if you don't have that ability to run it from a regulated power supply, the maximum direct battery that you can plug it into is going to be a 4S pack. Anything over that, then you're going to be struggling a little bit. And if you're running a full-size quad and using 5 or 6S, then you're going to have a think about where you're going to get the voltage to run it from. Last couple of comments on this in the video. I absolutely love the way that RunCam have set it up so you don't have to change any settings at all. It'll auto start, it'll auto stop, it'll record in 1080p, 60 frames a second. It'll just work straight out the bag. Don't forget, you do have the Wi-Fi application that you can use with it to change settings, and you can also plug it into the flight controller and use the RunCam control pieces, all detailed in the RunCam manual that you can download for this, that shows you how to set all that up. And a 4-minute 32 video, the one we've just been looking at up on the bridge, looking at the canal boats, that took about 1.14 gigabytes of space. So do make sure that you're using a decent size SD card. Maximum again is 64 gig, but I would probably put a minimum of 32 in this. Otherwise, you're going to have to get in the habit of dumping all the video down as soon as you get home at the end of every day's flying to make sure that you have enough space for the next day out at the field. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.